What if I told you the Republic is in jeopardy? The Republic of the United States of America is in jeopardy. And I really need to remind people watching, this is not a democracy. The Founding Fathers never wanted a true democracy. They never wanted a democracy. They wanted a republic. The republic is in danger. There is a growth, like a cancerous growth, spreading through the nation that is subverting the republic, the ideas of the foundation of the republic. And that cancerous growth is political correctness. The election of Donald Trump is a perfect example. Perfect example. After the election, there were people crying in the streets because Hillary lost and Donald Trump won. What were they crying about? Because of what Trump said. What he said was not politically correct. He talked about grabbing a woman by the coochie. So what? We're not electing a pope. We're electing a leader. This nation needs a strong leader. Somebody who is not afraid to hurt someone's feelings or hurt a group of people's feelings. That is what we need. People were not crying about his policies on free trade or doing away with free trade. They weren't concerned about that. They weren't concerned about him bringing the jobs back and making the United States a world leader, about getting out from underneath the China's thumb. They weren't worried about that. They weren't worried about that. They were worried about what Trump said years and years, even decades ago. There was a thing about Trump with the housing and how a woman was denied housing in the early 1970s. It's almost 50 years ago. And they were using that against him to try to slander him. Now, people change over time. Somebody's not the same that they were 10 years ago, or 20 years, or 30 years ago, or 40 years ago. We mature, we learn, we change. That's just all there is to it. So, rather than facing this and saying, hey, Donald Trump may have said this about women, he may have said this about immigrants, but he's got a good policy on foreign trade and economics. He's got a good policy, better policy than Hillary's on certain things. He addressed offshore tax havens. People in the streets weren't crying about the offshore tax havens that could potentially bring trillions of dollars back to the United States. They weren't crying about that. They were crying because he was a male chauvinist or a xenophobe. I don't even use them kind of words. They're stupid. Donald Trump was branded a xenophobe because he wanted to enforce immigration law. It's the law. He wanted to enforce it, so he's a xenophobe. We're going to go back to the teachings of Christ. Whenever Christ was asked about taxation, what did Christ say? Render unto Caesar, which is Caesar's. In other words, follow the law. If there is a law in place, follow it, or get the law changed. All Trump was doing was saying he's going to enforce immigration law. And for some reason, he is afraid of immigrants. He's a xenophobe. No, we're enforcing the law. But it's not politically correct to enforce certain types of laws. So this political correctness is undermining the very foundation of the republic. You have people saying they're going to ignore laws, like these safe haven cities who say we're going to ignore the immigration laws. We're going to let these people stay here who are in the nation illegally. Those are not following the teachings of Christ. Yes, we love each other. We love our neighbor. But there are laws. And we have to follow the law. That's all there is to it. So instead of those people crying about the tax foundations, offshore tax havens that Hillary almost refused to address, that Donald Trump wants to reform and bring that money back over here, the jobs he wants to bring back over here, they were crying about what he said. And that is going to undermine the republic. The next thing is the Electoral College. There is a movement after elections. There's usually a movement to abolish the Electoral College. Why? The Founding Fathers never wanted a democracy. take a look at the Democrats, the people who voted for Hillary. Even though Hillary fear-mongered, talked about a lot of stuff that just was not true, such as equal pay for women. Said, when I'm president, we're going to make sure that women are paid the same as men. There's already a law in the books. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 ensures that women are paid the same as men. It's been on the books for 5 years before I was born. So I'm 48 now, so 53 years old. I mean, the law's been on the books for 53 years. It's being used in courts to sue employers. The law is changing the workforce so that women are insured, they're paid more. But for some reason, if Hillary got into office, she was going to do something that we already have a law that's doing. But people believed her. People believed those kind of stories because they played on emotions. Rather than using logic, the Democrats played on emotion. And that's why the Founding Fathers did not want democracy. So that somebody like Hillary could not come in and rattle off these buzzwords and say, hey, you vote me in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And know that they're lying to the people. Or at least telling half-truths, such as equal pay for women. There's already law in the book. So exactly what was she going to do? So rather than providing exact specifics, and hey, we've already got, I don't think she ever mentioned the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I never heard her mention anything about it. I never read a news article that referred to the Equal Pay Act of 1963. So, rather than talking about the qualifications that Trump had over Hillary, people were crying in the streets because he's a monogamist, a xenophobe, what else? I don't know. I don't even use half those words. It wasn't over the qualifications. It was about what he said. And that attitude of not looking at the qualifications is undermining the republic. That when you look at a candidate, you have to look at the qualifications. Not what they did 50 years ago, not what they did 40 years ago, not what they said about women, not what they said about gays, not what they said about such and such. What are their actions? What did they do? We all say stuff we may not intend, in jesting or in passing or not thinking about it before we say it. We all say stuff that we may not intend to say. So, I think that's where people fell victim to the Democratic Party lies. Is that instead of looking at the qualifications of Trump and comparing them directly to the qualifications of Hillary, these big liberal media outlets focused on what he said and fear-mongered the people. And I feel sorry for the people who voted for Hillary, who fell for the lies of the Democratic Party. I really do. But you have to look at the qualifications. You have to look at what the person has done, their morals, their values, and go from there. Anyway, guys and gals, I'll talk to y'all later.